attention. I even tried to phone you, but
did you?
But I couldn't get your attention.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, welcome everybody. Good morning. Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. My apologies and my fault this time. Dave actually arrived and I didn't even notice him. And he's trying to wave at me saying, "Hey, Peter."
Yeah, I'm trying to wave phone.
Yeah.
Yes, Peter, you really must do something about your punctuality.
Right. Okay. So welcome everybody.
This tardiness you're displaying, that's my job, man. That is my job.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you must own it. And
yes, welcome to Qantas TV Bingo. Go, long venue.
Yeah, I must stop this tardiness. Okay, so Poilievre basically says Jivani.
Yeah, I told you, man.
So he says Jivani speaks for himself on the comments that he made in Washington, and basically he said Jivani speaks for himself, and he speaks for he speaks for himself, and I speak for the party. But
all right. First of all, let's clear this up. Okay, I got to tell you that tardiness is what I do. You don't do tardy. I do tardy.
That's
tardy.
True.
The tardy town is not big enough for both of us. So
yeah.
You can't be late. Only I can be late. All right. And this Jivani guy, you better describe who he is. You just dropped that name. I don't know if anyone knows who he is.
Jivani is a conservative MP. I'd never even heard of him, but he's a friend of J.D. Vance, and he went to Washington last month, and he basically came back saying that we need to do a whole lot of change, and he'd be giving more information later on, and he's basically almost challenging, I guess, Pierre Poilievre as not being American enough, not being pro-American enough, and that we should do more. We're shooting what he said was, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue this anti-American hissy fit, and this is the reason I'm trying to talk. This is the reason I'm trying to talk into our government. When reporters on Parliament Hill on Tuesday asked whether Poilievre agreed with Jivani, but he said no for a number of reasons. And he basically said that Canadians are legitimately upset by unjustifiable tariffs that the president has made. And as former Prime Minister Harper has said, we must focus not on how the president's words and deeds make us feel, but on how we can adapt.
Yes, Jivani is another one of these guys that think if you, he's talking about a hissy fit, an anti-American hissy fit. Don't you think it's the other way around?
Yeah.
It's the Trump administration that's had one hissy fit after the other about Canada. They had a hissy fit about the advertisement that Doug Ford put on about Ronald Reagan and his attitudes towards tariffs. They've had a hissy fit when Carney went to China, and then Trump had a hissy fit and said they're going to put 100% tariffs on Canada.
Yeah.
So it's the hissy fits are happening, but they're happening on the other side of the border. And Jivani is one of these guys who thinks that he can bootlick his way into the favor of the Trump administration. He's one of these guys that are thinking, well, you really got to just see it their way. And he's got this buddy, J.D. Vance. I'm not so sure J.D. Vance is loving this, because this helps their argument. They can always take Jivani and put him up there and say, here, there's a prominent Canadian politician who agrees with us and this kind of thing. Now, Pierre Poilievre did the right thing. He didn't have a hissy fit about Jivani. He just said Jivani does not speak for the Conservative Party. I speak for the Conservative Party.
Exactly. And given his situation, of course he speaks for the Conservative Party, right?
Of course. He's the leader.
Yeah, he's the leader. He's the person. He has to put his foot down, and even if the person is right, the statement would be something like, "Well, whilst my friend is right, he isn't the leader of this party. I am."
Yeah, and I gotta ask about the motivations of Jivani. He may have had a friendship with J.D. Vance. We don't know how much of a friendship he had. He had friendship with him at school when they were in university together. So, okay, he could be pretty tight pals with him. But if you are a real MP, what you would do then is you would go to the leader, in this case, Poilievre, or maybe even go to Carney and say, look, I've got I'm pretty tight with JD Vance. Do you want me to go down there and talk to him, or just kind of initiate some kind of conversation? And I'll tell you what he thinks. I'll be kind of a go-between. But what Jivani wants is he wants all the stars that come with being a hero. I'm going to go down there and solve things. That's what it sounds like to me. I may have him characterized wrong.
He put his Batman suit on and flew off to Washington, didn't he?
Yeah. Now, what you should have done, like Jivani, like to me, if I was in his shoes, I would say, hey, you know what? I know J.D. Vance pretty good. And me and him have been talking about all this. So, you know what? Maybe I could be a little bit of an in, not a spy or anything, but just kind of be a go-between Vance and us, and maybe we can have sponsor some talks and see where we can get. Instead of
then you'd have got three people. Then you'd have got 3 or 4 people in the room. Those being Jivani, Poilievre, J.D. Vance, and potentially Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
And then they could have had their buddy fest at Jivani's insistence, and maybe something could have happened that way. But that's traditionally the way you do it. You don't go off without your party leaders say so.
Yes, and to be look, do you find like at the very beginning when Trump started dropping these tariff bombs on us and started to insult us? Yeah, we did a bit of there's a lot of people that just kind of say, hey, started yelling back, but nowhere did it ever get to a hissy fit. And like I said before, if the guy opened it, do you see Carney having a hissy fit?
No,
you remember his comments on at Davos? Did that sound like a hissy fit to you?
No,
Poilievre in any of his comments about the trade between the U.S. and Canada, has he ever appeared to have had a hissy fit?
No.
How about any conservative MP? No.
And in fact, I would have to say that the Davos speech, when you compare to everything that his predecessor has done, the Davos speech was actually leagues ahead, perhaps one of the most powerful speeches in the last 10 years by any politician anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I don't know if you analyze it. In the end, it would be anything like Churchill's we'll fight them on the beaches, we'll fight them in the streets, that kind of a thing. That kind of inspirational thing.
Not even close, but still, yeah. Different era.
It's admirable because of the facts that he lays out.
Yes.
And his drawing of attention to things are not going back the way they were.
Yes.
And in fact, they were always vulnerable to this kind of thing. So what do we have to do? We try to insulate ourselves the best when any one of the big powers tries to force us into compliance.
Yep. Exactly.
And he didn't talk specific. Well, in our case, it was the United States, but we've taken it on the chin from China too. So here we have. We saw what happened when we had the Huawei executive. We were holding on to the Huawei executive and trying to extradite them to the United States. And we saw what China did to us, right? They did all kinds of stuff to us. They really got in our way and pushed us around and insulted us, called us a running dog. the U.S. president assaulted us, talked, called Carney, Governor Carney,
Yeah.
things of that kind.
Yeah.
So the big powers, like they can assault people and they can, take liberties that we can't do.
Yeah.
So what Carney was saying, it was just saying the facts. And I've heard Carney's speech referenced all over the world by many, many different people of different political stripes. So I think part of the problem is Trump is jealous that he didn't get the same kind of attention for his speech.
Yeah. Okay. Also moving on, Conservative MP Matt Jeneroux decided finally to cross the floor for national unity reasons.
Yeah, this was at the very beginning when he dropped out of politics, or supposedly dropped out of politics until the end of his term. He was not going to walk across the floor and join the Liberals, but he's had a hallelujah moment though. He's
and that was the Davos speech.
Yeah, that was part of it, and the other part of it is he says. Now, this is what he says. Now, of course, the conservatives think of him as a traitor and a guy that's turned their back on them and all this other stuff. But he himself has said that, like he's had that come to Jesus moment where he's seeing things the way he thinks they are. And he obviously thinks the Liberals are in the best position to help Canada move along. And I would approach this with some skepticism normally, but when you look at Carney, and Carney is that politician is right down the middle. It's hard, at a different time he might be a conservative. If he was a conservative politician right now, leader of the Conservatives, you couldn't see him doing anything much different than he's doing now.
Yep,
might be a few things here and there, but he's a right down the middle politician. And for other centrists or other politicians that are sort of just left of center or just right of center, you can see the appeal. And do you get behind somebody you think has more of a vision than your own party does?
Yeah,
Carney really is getting those, actually making it appear as if that he has a better idea about how to move the country forward. We shall see in the long run, but there is less of this, a lot less of idealism involved here. We get the right wing and we get the left wing and we get our politicians, and they speak a lot of idealistic stuff. The conservatives are big on deregulating capitalism, and the left wing is big on social things, that kind of thing. But if you're looking right down the middle, you want to do practical things. What is best for the country, in practical terms. And I think Carney would be an easy person to follow. Okay.
We were talking about this one with a bunch of people yesterday, and one of the questions is, well, one of the participants said that likely puts us on an election footing, and in fact actually may cause an election, even though we've now got a tied house, right? So we're at, I believe, 169. So but if there is an outright tie, of course, it means that the Speaker of the House has to vote in favor of keeping the government and keeping the debate alive.
Well, there's 3 by-elections coming up, and so 2 of them are safe Liberal seats, considered safe Liberal seats. The one in Montreal, the one that was won by 1 vote, got turned back by Quebec, a judge that didn't believe that was could be proved well enough that 1 vote won the election. So they're going to have a by-election there as well. If all 3 of those seats come into Liberals, they may be able to They maybe have a slender majority by one, maybe or something.
But
I can't even
but
remember.
the information he told us is that he's actually done elections. He's done every single election, municipal, provincial, and federal, since he was 18. Um, he's actually in contact with Elections Canada, and they are preparing for an election right now. It doesn't mean one will happen. That just means the organization, Elections Canada, is preparing for a possible election, with dates in May in mind.
Well, yeah. And it was predicted from the very beginning that once Carney won a minority government, which was a little bit of a surprise anyway, that he won a minority government, that the it would have to be decided one way or another in an election within a year and a half of him winning the
Yeah,
minority government. So that was the general, the pundits, the political pundits put that out
yeah,
there.
yeah,
I think he's approached Poilievre to see if he can reduce, both Poilievre and him know this election will have to come, but they might do a lot of cooperating ahead of time. In the end, though, at this particular time, we find Poilievre changing his tack, changing his image. And what we find among a lot of politicians right now, or at least I feel that I hear this, which is kind of good to hear. What's good for the country is what's good for the country.
mm-hmm.
You know, like you think back in Britain when Britain was on going to war, and they had been at war, and they took Churchill and put him in charge. Nobody liked the guy. He was an old-fashioned imperialist,
Yeah,
right? He wouldn't have got voted in. He wouldn't be the party leader in any other normal sense. He'd been a has-been, but obviously people saw the strength in him, right? He was able to see Hitler for what Hitler was. He'd made a lot
yeah,
of warnings about him, and he was a strong, capable leader in a situation where you had a war cabinet. So they put him in, and as soon as they had a chance to get rid of him, they did.
yeah,
And so that was for the country. You know what I mean? They did
yeah.
the thing. All the parties got together and did what was good for the country. So you might find that kind of thing happening now among the conservatives and the liberals. You might get this situation where they get away from the idealistic hoofra and actually work together to strengthen the country, and take credit to too.
Yeah.
You might not need a majority government right away in order
But
to
at the moment,
convince the
yeah,
opposition that what we're doing is a good thing for the
yeah.
country.
But at the moment, if we do go to an election, I think that probably Carney would be looking at it from the viewpoint of the possible, can he possibly get a majority?
At this particular point, the kind of efforts that Carney have made are making an impression even among those who had a whole lot of reservations about the Liberal Party. He's got
Yeah,
rid of most of the fluff that was there. He's identified the government swell 40% larger under Trudeau than anyone else. That happened when his father was leader. The government swelled to unusually large sizes. So when the people look at Carney and they see his abilities and they see what he's been trying to do, even with a massive $72 billion budget and the deficit that brings, I'm so surprised that people haven't been freaking about it, because I think they believe that Carney is doing what he thinks should be done in order to help the country move forward, and uh, and they will forgive him this because they want somebody with confidence that can do something like that. Uh, I think that that if we went to elections tomorrow, that Carney would easily win a majority.
Mm. Okay. All right. So moving on. You had to talk about. Okay, so you sent me this AI clip about Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance and their views about saving Western civilization, and I found that quite interesting because they're using economic sovereignty versus globalism, and they both argue that unfettered globalism has hollowed out America, the American middle class, and we believe that moving manufacturers to places like China has been disastrous. And I would agree with them. It has been disastrous. But one of the things that they're saying, they're building this upon Christian values, etc., nuclear family, local community. And I find it interesting that, for example, J.D. Vance is basically saying the key factor that has to be fought here is the ruling class, which I can't help but think he's a part of. Whereas Marco Rubio is talking about the primary threat being the rise of the China and the CCP.
Well, let's bring our audience up to snuff here. I entered the question into AI because I was very curious of why the politicians that we have now are so willing to lie and to exaggerate and so shameless that they won't take on their failures. When I watched the Pam Bondi thing and the grilling she took there and how she answered things, and I thought to myself, how could anyone be that so unprofessional as she was? Completely and have a burn book where she realized she wasn't gonna answer any questions that she didn't have to, and she had this burn book, so any particular congressman who was asking her a question, she could look him up and say, what about this, what about this, what about this, and completely deflect it. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like no other government I've ever seen. You got J.D. Vance, Rubio, and all these guys turning their back on things they've said before. And I thought to myself, what is motivating them? And there's got to be something ideological that is motivating people to act in such a way. And that is, and I found it here, and I've heard them speak of this too, that they believe that Western civilization is being threatened and that Western civilization is going to collapse, not only from threats from the outside, but threats from the inside. And the philosophy is often called, here it says, national conservatism or the common good capitalism. And they believe that the West is facing an existential threat, that the amount of immigrants coming into Europe, those coming into the United States, is eroding the fabric of Western civilization. I think that's what's motivating them to do the things they're doing.
But the other
they are unapologetic for their mistakes, unapologetic for the ways in which they've handled things, like the threats of tariffs and threats of military takeovers. And they kind of look the other way on the ethics of this because they think the larger goal justifies the means. So the means, the ends justify the means, because they may have to do a lot of unethical things to save Western civilization, and they're willing to do it. And when I watch Pam Bondi, or I've heard Rubio or Vance, and the way that the things they used to say and the things they are saying now, I'm thinking, what is motivating them to be like that? What is motivating them to lie or twist or deceive? What is motivating them to not be honest about tariffs? Remember that whole thing in tariffs, how nobody in the administration
Yeah.
would say the American people were going to pay the tariffs. They implied that
But
they
the other, but the other issue about this, where they're talking about decline of Western civilization, part of this that they're talking about is the decline due to internal political choices, i.e., liberals and woke politics, as they put it, right?
Well, the
As
thing is, to
being
me,
part of the
they seem to me to be perfectly willing to erode the democracy. They feel that the democracy that we have developed is part of the problem. It is part of what helps us erode the Western values and Western civilization. And basically, it says, I can get it here: economic sovereignty versus globalism, the threats of China, cultural trend, traditionalism. Vance and Rubio often point to a crisis of meaning. They argue that Western civilization is built on Christian values, the nuclear family, and local community. So when they're looking around and they see the nuclear family eroding, people not wanting to have kids, the people not going to church and that kind of thing, the sort of stuff you see, the woke ideology. So I believe that they think that that any sacrifice, is worth saving Western civilization. If that means you have to cheat or lie or corrupt, the ends will justify the means. And so I had to figure that out because it did not sound like politics as usual from the very beginning, particularly from people like Vance and Rubio.
Yeah, I asked exactly the same question, by the way, to Microsoft's Copilot, and basically, I get one of what Rubio is saying is the U.S. and Europe are inheritors of a shared history, culture, and one civilization, what we call Western civilization. And he goes on to say Europe must reject the policies that led to their decline. Who's saying they're declining? Immigration and liberal policy, liberal values are contributing to civilization erasure, and the West must reindustrialize, rebuild supply chains, and defend its way of life. I don't disagree with the need to rebuild, reindustrialize, rebuild, etc. And he's talking about civilizational revival narrative, the idea that the West must consciously rebuild its strength or lose its identity.
Yes, I found this very interesting, and I've heard them speak of this from time to time. And when you get a guy, let's say like Howard Lutnick, who went in front of Congress, and he had told the whole world that he met Jeffrey Epstein. He just by chance he happened to move in beside Jeffrey Epstein in New York. Went to visit him once. Was so appalled and so overwhelmingly disturbed by the guy that
that was in the DOJ files.
Yeah, he would never speak to him again. Never do anything. Like he was just a creep. You got to get rid of him. But the Epstein files then revealed that he had a relationship with him, a business relationship with him, that he went down and visited him on Epstein Island with his family, the person that was so gross and vulgar that you would then introduce your family, your children to them. You would take another couple there to meet with them and dine with them. Other things that they did in cooperation with one another. Any other administration would have fired him immediately. You saw what happened in England when people were in Britain. Well, actually, people in the government were implicated with Epstein. They had to leave. They were either fired or they had to resign.
And note the comment that we've got here.
Lutnick just goes on as nothing happened.
Note the comment we have here, Dave. Andrew
Andrew in the UK was arrested in the UK, yes. But you're not finding that same thing happening in the United States, are you? You're not finding anybody answering to the law for this. Howard Lutnick is not forced to resign because he lied to Congress, he lied to the world, and he was found out. Anyone else would have said, get out. Here's Nancy. Now this is good because she's an American voice. She can help us here. Good morning from Cleveland. It was 60 degrees in the city yesterday, and I loved it. This morning, our morning news was running a segment on Prince Andrew getting arrested. I'm not sure what he did. This morning, Fox 8 is sponsoring the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway. It is a good cause. I hope that have a good day, and our high will be 57 today. Amazing middle of February. Yeah, thank you.
Just an incident. So essentially, there has been calling in the UK for using the proof from the Epstein files to actually arrest and even potentially imprison Andrew.
Yes, and I think it probably should happen because the guy lied and just denied. And that it seems that he got that advice from Epstein himself, who denied, or Trump himself, who denied. Now, Trump has said that quite explicitly. Someone said to him, it doesn't look like you've done anything wrong in the files, but you're all over the files, but it doesn't look like you've done anything wrong with it. How come you're so against them? And Trump said, because it'll hurt a lot of people I know. So that could be his motivation. I don't think Trump was stupid enough to get mixed up with young women or underage, but he definitely had friends that were mixing it up there, including Ludwig.
I don't know. Angela's been looking at the Trump connection in the Epstein files, that are, the public elements of the Epstein files, and his name is mentioned on the same page as victims.
You have to remember too that Epstein was remarkable. Like I just mentioned, Ludwig and what a liar he was, and any other government would have seen him out pretty quick.
Fired him on the spot. Yeah,
God, you lied, and it's very obvious you lied, and so you got to go. You've embarrassed the government. Not this case, but Lutnick is a loyalist, a Trump loyalist. He will do anything Trump says, so he's going to stay. Pam Bondi is a loyalist. She's going to stay. Kash Patel, he's changed his mind 100 times about the files too. Like he was all over them before he was in government, and now he said nothing to see here. He once said that Trump was he was listed less than 100 times in the files. Trump is listed thousands of times in the files.
15,000 when I searched them.
Yeah, which doesn't really mean anything at all. But remember this, Epstein. Epstein was. Go ahead.
Epstein is basically records of everything, every kind of thing. He's talking about the files I opened, and I just opened a few. I wasn't doing any specific sub searches within the files. I was just looking for Donald Trump, and I just opened half a dozen files under under the Donald Trump thing. And a lot of what was being said was just about business dealings of Trump, or maybe what policy was, what proposed policy. And we're winding the clock back to the first election for Donald Trump back in 2016. Supporting him perhaps on another one was supporting his campaign.
Well, remember, Epstein was extremely charming fellow.
Yeah.
He was a kind of a Renaissance man. He knew a lot about everything.
Yeah.
And to my, I'm being embarrassed for Noam Chomsky, who tried to help Epstein. He felt that Epstein was getting a whole lot of bad press
deal,
for the wrong, and he himself, who got a lot of undeserved bad press, kind of advised him, and now they're very sorry about it and look very foolish. A lot of people are saying the same things. We seriously didn't think that he was that bad of a guy, and we kind of actually really liked him. And now we have to put up with the fact that we look stupid. And what does Melody say here?
Well, okay. Melody Sargent is basically saying there's definitely a pile of files where Trump has assaulted and raped children. Just because I didn't find them, I'm not denying what you're saying, right? He's protecting the other billionaires. He's not protecting other billionaires. He's protecting himself, which is what he's done since day one. And honestly, you don't need to see the 15,000 files. The first photo I saw gave me nightmares for a week. Yeah, you probably saw a different file than I saw. As I said, what opened on my mind would probably be set by the search preconditions you've already had on your computer. So mine were probably business focused because I've been doing a lot more business focused searching, of course, and not specifically around Trump, but in general speak. So that would be Melody. That would be the reason you would get different set of results than I would.
Personally, I don't even want to look at the files. My stomach turns when I see certain things already. When I saw Prince, when there was a young girl on the floor and Prince Andrew's over top of her, like it's turning my stomach. Like what? Like you're hanging around with this guy. Now, on the other hand, like I said before, he had people in his orbit. Innocently enough, they were business associates. They were, like I said, he was interested in science. He dangled funding for other scientific projects. He was told, like a number of people said, "Oh, Jeffrey, you're our best friend. You're a wonderful friend." Right from Fergie to Noam Chomsky to a bunch of others that said, "Oh, you're wonderful. You're a great friend, and thanks so much." So the guy had charm and ways in which to manipulate people. And like Bill Gates, like for instance, like he should have known better. He's hanging around Epstein, hoping he's going to get some money for charity out of him. Why is he even hanging out with him after he's been convicted the first time? Yeah. Right? Like seriously, you just don't want that money, do you? You don't know where that money came from.
No, you don't.
So he was an extraordinary person, Epstein. He seemed to have, I think if he met you or me or anybody, he would find a way in which to cultivate. And we would probably walk away thinking that guy we just had a beer with was a great guy. Wow, that Epstein fella. Wow, what a cool guy.
Here was a thing, by the way. So if you were to put yourself, if you like, in the mind of a 16-year-old young girl, and you're being courted by Epstein, you don't know necessarily what this is, and you're invited to the island, and I suppose what your fantasy is as a 16-year-old young girl might well be, okay, I've never been invited to a private island before. I'd love to find out what goes on a private island. Sweet and innocent like.
Well, young ladies are easily starstruck, or many of them are.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, you could be a model. We'll get you to be a model. We'll get you to hang around with these really rich people. Maybe you'll become an actress. Maybe you'll become a model. Even you could be jet setting. Imagine somebody that's 15 years old and goes into a private jet. Particularly when they come from homes of modest means. They probably might not even have a car, or are struggling to get, paying the rent, and they live in a trailer park or something, and all of a sudden you're jet setting and you're hanging around these huge mansions. It's easily to be starstruck,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, starstruck. Starstruck is probably what gets them into it, and that's only the start, of course.
Well, it was the Maxwell had a method by which she was able to talk to these girls, put them on a comfortable level, And very few of those girls were able to see it for what it was. I've heard of one or two of them that started at Epstein's place and ran out of there as fast as they could, or never came back the second day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So some of them got afraid, but Maxwell was the one that did the coaxing, and so when the girls got a little bit uncomfortable, she's the one that told them everything's all fine, it's really good, that kind of thing.
Basically, Gary was saying that if he'd have met him, it wouldn't have been Hillary Clinton that have ended him. It would have been Gary.
I didn't get that. What's that?
All right. Okay, here. I wish I had met him. It wouldn't have been Hillary Clinton that ended him.
Oh, it would have been Slick would have taken care of them.
Yes, Slick would have taken care of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look at. Yeah, I don't know. I when I see all this, you think you would be immediately repulsed by the guy, but he had so many connections.
He has this charm, doesn't he? Yeah.
And you've got all these testaments that he was a wonderful guy. He was a really good friend. So he's a Jekyll and Hyde guy, an honest to God Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You might have seen the Dr. Jekyll, but lots of young girls saw the Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Can Carney's $6.5 billion military plan save Canada's auto and steel sectors?
Oh, I've said that Carney's pretty conservative in most of his things, but this is a bit of a dynamism. I can't really see this coming from the boldness of this move to come from any other government right at this particular time, because our country is being affected by the tariffs, and we've lost a lot of jobs and lost markets for our steel and our cars and things like that. And we're going to have to wait till the Supreme Court weighs in on the tariffs, whether we're going to get any kind of relief on that. In the meantime, Carney's saying, well, what can we do in the meantime? Well, we have to increase our defense spending. We have to do that anyway. That's one thing we can thank Trump for. Our defense spending was pathetic, and so was the rest of the West. So that's one thing we can thank him for, because look what happened. The Ukrainian war, the Gaza thing, and all that. So it's very, very clear that we're going to have to go back to that time and period when we were worried about being invaded and things of that kind,
And what they're talking about with the defense spending is essentially we're pushing to rebuild domestic capacity in vehicles, steel, munitions, and advanced manufacturing that is all targeted at the defense sector. So 6.6 billion worth of spending in that defense sector. And it's shifting towards internal supply chains for military equipment, and with incentives, companies that can retool defense applications. For defense.
Yeah, what I was getting at when I was talking there is that, yes, we're going to have to increase our defense spending and, measure up. We have to come to the table now. It's very clear that we really do need more defense spending, that we've been slacking this. So what Carney's done is he's taken the situation that we find ourselves in, where our economy is being threatened by the tariffs, and it is, and a lot of our jobs and things have been going south because of it, both literally and figuratively. He's decided, well, we've got these workers in these industries. We've got steel industry, we've got auto industry, and we need to boost defense spending. So let's convert as much of our own industry into defense industry.
Well, at the end of the day,
you can take Canadian steel. You can spend the money, take Canadian steel, and apply it to defense spending. You can also do that in some of the auto plants, some of their techniques. Go ahead.
And one of the things that's always been proven is when you improve defense spending, not only are those companies that are spending on defense, spending on the defense projects, but they're also spending on non-military things as well. So there is always a double-edged sword here, because there is firstly the defense spending, and secondly the investment in the non-defense sector. And aside from anything else, workers go and spend their money, don't they?
Yeah, and it's good to notice here that they're not even just talking about domestic defense spending. They're talking about increasing the defense materials to be sold outside the country by 50%. We do know that Canada, for one thing, we build some sort of troop carrier or armored carrier for troops. We sold a bunch of them to the Saudis. So apparently, we're going to do stuff like that. We're going to make more and more of it available to be sold. So weapons and whatever to be sold. One of the biggest things defense spending is selling arms is a huge business, massive business, and maybe Canada can get into that a bit. But if you convert, let's say you need some place to go with your steel, and they said, "Oh, here's Melody again." Every woman everywhere knows how it's done. They bring you in with no threat, find out what you want or need, and then give it to you, and then demand you owe them.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. And Rick is saying, no. The only good diddler is a dead diddler. You got that right. And no, can't make money in Canada. Trump remove EPA and Carney goes green. Too late. A war may start this weekend. Luckily, we have NORAD. Yeah, we do have NORAD, and that's one of the things that Trump could not use against us, because his generals were in front of Congress and Senate and saying how well Canada cooperated, and they have a really good relationship, and Canada and the U.S. Work very, very well together in NORAD and other defense and things that they have together. They work as almost as one country. The only thing the generals had issue with was the amount of money that Canada spent. They don't have that issue now, obviously, because Canada is spending much more than it ever did. So will those initiatives, so I have to celebrate Carney here. He's almost going on a war footing. When the country goes to war, it does now a war economy, right? It goes on to a war economy, and it directs its economy to the war footing and produces for war. What Carney's done is here's something in between normal economy and war economy. He's taking whatever available money he can borrow, beg or steal, and going to direct it into defense spending. That will pick up the slack, and some of these people are being laid off because of tariffs and so on, will now get a job. Canadian steel will be put into the defense. Canadian auto industry will be done, although I don't think they'll be making cars, but they'll be using the manufacturing facilities that a car plant has to do other things.
Yeah. The other question about this is that so what Melody's saying, we're supplying weapons to Israel. We know that. Jabe's been talking about that for quite some time. Right. The other question, of course, is going back to potential allies. When we were talking about allies in the Canadian Pacific Free Trade Pact, and the other one being the European Union, it is known that Europe right now is ramping up on defense spending. So that is an area whereby that could certainly aid Canada.
To speak to Melody, We know that the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, China, Belgium, um, every just about every country with an industry sells arms and munitions to other countries. It's a big money thing. Unfortunately, a lot of those weapons go into the hands of the wrong people. A lot of it gets used the way we wouldn't want it. And we see what's happened in Gaza and the genocide there, and how U.S. weapons have been used in that. Well, it wasn't just U.S. weapons. I think initially it also was British weapons and stuff.
Canadian weapons as well, because Canadian weapons were being sold to the US, who were transferring them straight onto Israel.
Yeah, which was a problem. And also, we did supply the Ukraine with as much as we could too. The issue here, though, is we hope that the Canadian buildup of defense is for Canadian defense, not for the arms industry. Basically, that sounds a little naive on my part, but I hope as much of it as can. We do need the defense spending. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad guys out there, like Russia, that would take advantage of us. But if we did,
and I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure with everything I've been hearing about Donald Trump that there will be a flare-up this weekend in Iran, because he seems to be more hesitant on actually calling for that airstrikes. I know they've got military in the Gulf and prepared to go, but being prepared to go actually happening with Donald Trump, I'm not sure. You see, he's stated on many occasions he doesn't want to actually go to war.
If he is shown that he will be overwhelmingly victorious like he was in Venezuela,
yeah,
he will.
Oh, yeah, I know.
The uncertainty will, some of the ships get blown out of the water, whatever. If they're very comfortable that Iran does not have the capability to strike back if they do a massive air assault on Iran. Now, it could be a bluff. Anyway, look at all these planes and stuff. We're going to do massive amounts of damage if you don't make a deal.
Yeah.
We will see what happens there. The kind of demands that the U.S. has made on Iran are impossible for Iran to meet. They want Iran to be completely defenseless. They don't want them to have ballistic missiles or any other kind of thing. So there's a lot of you can't move with that kind of issues going on.
Well, and
of course, that's their first sally. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was going to say, Randy West makes the point that who would actually think that Carney is actually going to spend money on military, and further that he announces and then does nothing to follow through with any real action is Randy's view on this matter. He does not. He does have a peace meeting this Sunday, and are you going, Dave? Bingo callers are free. Are you going, Dave? Bingo callers are free.
He does have a peace meeting this Sunday. Are you going, Dave? Bingo callers are free. Who has the peace meeting? Is that going to be Carney has a peace meeting?
Trump, I'm guessing.
Trump. Oh, yeah. So
this is the board, right?
The board will make the decision as long as the decision is Trump's. Right. This is what I want to happen. So everybody, if you want to stay on the board, you better agree with me.
Yeah.
So
the board's becoming rapidly a nodding function, isn't it? Just sit there with your nodding head.
Yeah, it will be from the beginning till the end.
Yeah.
But
you pay $1 billion.
I don't know. There's issues there against Carney, but geez, he hasn't been in that long enough. Really, has he, to be able to do the things like
you pay $1 billion to just sit there and nod?
Yeah, $1 billion to be a permanent member.
Yeah, there you go. $1 billion to do this. Yeah.
And as always, nobody knows where that money's going.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've kind of nailed it on the head today, and that's the end of our day today.
Yeah, I think the one that I put in there about Rubio and Vance and others in the administration doing what they're doing. There's something very different about this administration, about this government, that has always kind of really puzzled me. And I heard the stuff about saving Western civilization, but I thought that was just kind of a way of, sort of advertising themselves or promoting themselves. But it seems to me they really do believe it. They really do believe that Western civilization is on the cusp, is very vulnerable, and it may disappear. And I have a feeling that they're willing to do just about anything, including reducing the democracy of the United States, or even eliminating it, in order to save Western civilization. So there's the ideology behind the people who are working with Trump.
Yeah.
You got to figure they really don't they're really not a good match. But what they see in Trump is a guy that can get votes. If they can get into seats of power, all they have to do is tell the world how great a guy Trump is, and then maybe they'll be able to do what they want to do, and that is to save Western civilization, which sounds bizarre, but that seems to be what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, just as we're kind of wrapping up, so just to let everybody know, there's a Fort Erie bound incident at Christie Lakeview entry and Grimsby, which of course might end up impacting people going the other way.
Yes. Anyway, we're going to wrap up, and as I always do, I bring up Gaza. And there has officially the death toll is 75,000. It turns out that the Israelis, although they've always complained about the death toll and said it wasn't accurate or might not be accurate, turns out that they have similar figures themselves as to where's the death toll, making up 3.4% of the population of Gaza has died during this. 3.4 or 5% of the population has died, and that's a very conservative estimate. And that over half of them were innocent women, children, and old folk. So over half are definitely couldn't possibly be belligerents, and so it's a disgusting thing.
Yeah. All right, and Dave.
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.
Bye.